Welcome to the Caregiven podcast. I'm Inga.
And I'm Julie.
And long story short, we have Caregiven. We are two momtrepreneurs who have built an in-home care business from the ground up, guided every step of the way by God's care and fueled by agape love. Almost 14 years later, we felt called to create this podcast as a resource for families with caregiving needs. Whether you care for a family member or are looking for advice on professional caregiving, we want this to be a platform to support you.
Each week, we will come to you with encouraging stories of families who have found the right balance for their loved ones, tips for how to care for them and you, and much more. We hope you continue to join us each week as we share in this exciting new journey together.
Hello, Sunshines, and hello, Julie.
Well, hello, Inga.
How the heck are you?
I'm so good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited because we have a guest speaker today.
Yes.
She's not really a guest. She's kind of like family to us, but
Right.
she's a guest on the podcast.
Yes.
Well, I was going to start off by asking about like what's your favorite fall activity and what do you have in store for Farm Girl artwork, but instead I just want you two to talk about how you know each other.
Well, to the left of me is Jennifer Schaffner. She's a social worker at Encompass Health, formerly Frontier Hospice here in town. And we have known each other actually a long time.
A very long time.
Yeah, we met each other up at the hospital. Mm-hmm. And you worked there for a long time, and then you just transitioned.
You worked there for a while.
Yeah, about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was there 26.
Yeah. You get the winter chicken dinner. Yeah.
Don't you guys have some stories about doing some classes together?
So this is the thing. I should have had Jennifer with me all throughout a college career because we ended up having to have a medical terminology class together. And we'd sat in the back and we were like not the teacher's favorite, I don't think. But we had to, it was like just this major competition.
There was a little competition.
Yeah. So basically I'd get my results back and she'd get hers and we'd have to see who'd first show, and the winner got a happy dance, and I got an A in a class.
Nice. Where were you earlier on in her life?
Saying. My mother would have paid her to go to all of those classes with me.
Oh, that's awesome. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we do have to go to the favorite fall. What is your favorite fall activity? What do you have planned?
Oh, one of my favorite things to do is, just because it's outside and you're enjoying everything, is bringing the cows home from summer pasture.
Nice.
And it's a really big job, so it's actually you're really tired and you get pretty cranky, but it's so good to get the girls home and then move into the transition of having them and those chores at home all the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was thinking my favorite fall thing also has to do with farm life. Mm-hmm. It's breeding season for us with the sheep. And so the ram gets a marking harness on. So I love coming home after work and getting to go out into the pasture and see if any of the girls have been marked.
Wow.
I know. Jennifer's like, I don't know about you people. So what about you?
Nothing with farming. No cows or sheep going on here. I like to just get out and walk.
Yeah.
The colors are so beautiful, and the air is usually crisp with just a coolness about it that is refreshing. And I don't know. I just love this time of year. It's actually my favorite time of year.
I do too. Yeah. The temperature, like wear a sweatshirt, is just the right amount. That's my favorite temperature outside. Yeah. And the fall colors are just gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Love it.
I just don't like what comes after it.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the
Well,
snow.
don't think too far ahead.
That snow.
That's true. Yeah, right. Just live in the moment.
I'm gonna.
Just appreciate where we are.
Right? Right?
And if you didn't have cows or sheep, you could leave.
Well, this is true, but...
Oh, speaking of leaving... Congratulations on your retirement.
Thanks.
Yeah, we had to get you in here before you were gone.
You know it.
So you've been a social worker now for how many years?
Well, 28 in the Valley. And
Yeah.
then before that, I was 5 in North Idaho, Spokane, working in adoptions, actually.
Wow.
Wow. And so now your focus is on hospice. And you've had an incredible career with some really great programs like Wings.
Yeah.
And you actually began that whole process.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the.
So you worked with cancer patients. You've seen it all.
Yeah. you learn how to live when you work with people that have bad disease. All this other stuff falls to the wayside, and I don't know. And Wings was started. It was so cool. There was a gal from Libby that couldn't come in for her treatment because she didn't have enough gas money. And I thought, and I was, a 28-year-old social worker. I'm like, you should not have to die because of gas money.
Yeah.
And boom, Wings. There was enough people that had the same thought. It was a God thing, honestly, the way it came together.
Oh, well, we're going to miss you a lot. You have just always been just so much fun and such a blessing to talk to every time we've had the same client and we got to work together as a team. It's really, really been cool. It's been some of my favorite times.
Oh, thanks, Julie. But, I'm still going to be around. I'm actually thinking about writing a book.
That's awesome. So we'll have to have you come back on as a guest after you write your book.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Oh, well, it's kind of a combination of some stories of my career and my personal life, and it's going to be about love and forgiveness.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, that's awesome.
So big.
It's huge. I mean, people, it's like you just watch things in your lifetime and you feel really blessed, but I've been given a lot of gifts in my career, and to be witness to people as they face their life and their mortality and their relationships with each other is such an honor. And every time I have interacted with people and had that kind of an honor and just raw, real conversation, the topic hasn't been money or houses or cars. The real conversations have been about love and mistakes and forgiveness. And it's just such a beautiful topic, and I think we can talk about it more. It's a beautiful topic.
Yeah. Well, pencil us in when you get that book written that you'll have to come back and talk to us again.
My word. So excited to get to see that. That's very cool.
Thanks.
What an incredible topic.
And Julie, so you picked our verse for this week, and you picked it because our topic for today's show actually is hospice, helping others simply pass into calm eternity. And so go ahead and read the verse to us that you chose.
Well, it's John 3:16. I think almost everybody knows that one. It's, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believeth in him should not perish but have eternal life. And I think, on purpose, like you said, I picked that because a lot of the feelings that go through your head as you're in that process of hospice is knowing where you're going to end up.
Yep.
And that's
absolutely
a big deal. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I chose that.
Well, you did a fine job, Julie. You got an A today because Jennifer always brings out the best in you.
Yay.
Well, if any of you listeners out there have a verse, something that's meaningful to you, please email us at thecaregivenpodcast@gmail.com. Share it with us. We love to know what the meaning is for you personally. But if you don't want to share that and just want to share the verse, we would love to have that as well. So again, please email thecaregivenpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll move into our section on uplifting stories of the week. Julie, you get to go first.
Yes. Well, mine is not so much a story, more of just an uplifting story, but just more of a life thing, because once again of the hospice topic. And there was a guy that had gone to a funeral, and he was looking at the tombstones, and he said, what's going on here is that they talk about the death of the date of birth and then the date of death. He said, but what's most important is that dash in between. And he said, for that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth. And now only those who loved him know what that little line is worth. What matters is how we live in love and how we spend our dash. So think about what time you have left and what are people going to say about you when you're gone. And so they said to be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in your lives like we've never loved them before. So when your eulogy is being read with your life actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you lived your dash?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. And what's really cool about that is kind of it just rolls right into what I wanted to talk to you guys about with my uplifting story. It's not a story per se, but basically this article that I found talks about how stories or music can synchronize the heartbeats of everyone that is listening into a single rhythm. Oh. So as you're reading it, I'm thinking about that and feeling, as you go through it, how it lines up. But anyway, so this article goes on to talk about how back in the midst of time, before Gutenberg's printing press, before the Chinese had invented parchment paper, before clay tablets, and humans passed information along through stories, right? So it turns out that those thousands of years of storytelling tradition may have actually altered our biology. Basically, when you think about Once Upon a Time or My Fellow Americans, it synchronizes the fluctuations of heart rates between the individuals listening to it. So human hearts don't beat in perfect rhythm. And depending on a person's level of physical fitness, the fluctuations and variability in those regular beats, they can be actually measure almost entire seconds. But as speakers and listeners listen, their hearts literally beat as one. So if you think about it, talks later in this, there was a heart rate experiment where the subjects were presented with a 1-minute audiobook snippet from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And they found that there was significant correlation with the heart rate synchronicity between the subjects, but they also wanted to have a control on it. So they basically gave the same subjects different 1-minute sections, and the heart rate synchronicity dropped significantly. So basically it just goes on to talk about if you imagine being at a concert hall, that all of the musicians and they're playing in a perfect synchronized rhythm, but at the same time, everyone in that concert hall, your hearts are almost beating in that same rhythm. Oh. So it's almost like all of these humans become one big, large organ. It's just, isn't that crazy?
That is,
but it makes
would
sense.
Never have thought about that. That's really cool.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was very interesting. So, and you proved it. Well, I mean, I think you guys' hearts were beating the same as mine as Julie was reading the dash. I'm going to go with that. So
yes,
stick with that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll stick with that. Anyway, so interesting. And if you guys want to know more about that stuff, I'm sure that Alyssa will have it posted on our show notes so that you can go back and check my storytelling, information sharing credibility, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, so Jennifer, you are here to meet with us today and talk with us about hospice. We talked a little bit, early on in this conversation about who you are, but is there anything else you want to tell us kind of about your career? How you said you started out in Spokane, Coeur d'Alene area. Yeah. Is that what you said? Just kind of tell us who you are.
Oh, geez.
But keep it short, lady. I'm just teasing.
Don't write a book. Yeah, I got my master's degree in social work at Eastern Washington University in Cheney.
Nice.
And my folks were born and raised in the Coeur d'Alene homestead area, and then military life took us all over, but we ended up back there. So I graduated, and I worked for Lutheran Social Services for 5 years, doing adoptions and working with birth moms and helping with reunions. It was fun, but it's challenging work.
I can imagine.
And then I took a vacation to Glacier Park. And,
rest
and
was
I
history.
said, wow, I should live here. And there was an opening for oncology social worker, and I didn't know what oncology meant. And so I went home, and my mom, who's a nurse, I said, Mom, I'm interested in this job. Cancer, you don't want it. So, of course, I interviewed and took it. Because that's what you do.
Yes.
And it was really cool. So I moved here in 1993. And started out as the oncology social worker. At the time, Sally Cameron Russell was the social worker, and Betsy Robinson. It was just a cool group of people that taught me about hospital social work. And then over time, Medicare regulations change, and all of a sudden it's discharge planning and a bunch of other stuff. And so it kind of took some turns here and there, and I started Wings, helped with case management. So helped develop some different programs within, at that time it was Kalispell Hospital. And so that was fun. And then over time I helped with the cancer support community and helped with palliative care. And then a couple years ago there was some stuff that just happened, and I ended up leaving and working for, at the time it was Frontier Hospice. And they were bought out by this company called Encompass Hospice. And now I'm ready to retire and do something totally different and what I want to do rather than, I mean, it's not that I didn't want to do all that other stuff, but it's like, wow, at what point can you just throw all this to the wind and say goodbye to corporate America and hang your own shingle and do your own thing? And we'll see what comes out of it. But I love being a social worker. The thing I like about it is I think about my whole career. I worked with people from birth to death. Mm-hmm. And all of it was such a huge honor. And to me, the most sacred time is end of life. Mm-hmm. And so I love palliative care and hospice work and working with people with just challenging diseases, because all the bull is taken out and you're raw and it's real and it's life, and you just don't have the time for smallness and irrelevancy. And it's just beautiful. And when I get to be a part of it, it's such an honor. And I used to do the Bosom Buddies, was the breast cancer support group. And honestly, that group of women taught me how to live. Yeah. And they were just share their stories and their hopes and what defines them and all sorts of stuff. And I was just a young Yahoo. And all of a sudden I was a young Yahoo with an old soul. Mm. Oh. And, you learn real quick what's real. And, man, it was just such a privilege to be a part of that group. And now with hospice, it's a huge privilege when people say, you know, hey, it's my last chapter. Want to come along for the ride. And wow. And I've always said that the only commodity you have at end of life is time. Nothing else matters. And so your time and how you choose and who you choose to give that time to is a bucket of gold. Mm-hmm. And when somebody opens their door to you and says, here, have a bucket of my gold, I mean, it's just, I just embrace that, and to listen to them and to hear their stories and, you know, to hopefully help. I mean, that's what hospice is about, is providing, you know, symptom management and help. But the interesting thing was when you were talking, Julie, it's like, okay, we're talking about, you know, hospice and when people are dying. So let's talk about this phrase here. And I view it a little different. When I hear hospice, I hear, let's talk about living.
Oh, I love that.
And I don't think any of us say, okay, today I'm going to die. I mean, you might want to, but it's just not, most people are just wanting symptom management, and they want to live the longest life possible without suffering, with symptom suffering. And so hospice benefit is actually that. It's like, how do we help you have the best life as long as possible without the pain, without the suffering that goes with it? And so you have all these modalities that can come in and help you to try and different ways. And then you almost have to barter. Okay, do you want to be more awake and have conversations and have a little more pain so that you can be present? And so you do this weird dance, and every person, absolutely every person is different. And it's beautiful.
So when we talk about home care and the way that our businesses have coupled up quite often to help with the hospice thing, there's two different ways that people come to us with hospice. Is people that are already on hospice and they need the extra care. Then there's those that we are with that we then start to have tough conversations with the family to say, I think you need to talk to a hospice professional so that you can understand exactly really how wonderful this program is. I'm a believer. I love it so much because of the quality people that we have dealt with. But I think there's a stigma to it. And then also that people needed to get educated that it's not scary. It's a blessing. Yeah. So can you talk?
Oh, you hit the nail right on the head. Yeah. And I almost wish they could go back and change the word. Because when people hear hospice, they think they have to be on their deathbed. Right. And so they're like, oh, you think I'm dying? And so if you bring it up, they think you know something they don't know. It's hard. And so how to have those conversations, but I wish we could just shift that whole paradigm about hospice. And hospice, again, is about living, but on the bell curve, this is all Medicare driven, is Medicare says your doctor has to declare that he or she thinks you have less than 6 months to live per the normal bell curve. And so given your diagnosis and your disease process, you're cruising along in your trajectory of life, and as we age and as we get disease, that our 10,000 elevation plane is actually now at 5,000 feet, and it's so you're kind of getting closer and closer to the time when we all get to die. Right. And there's fear in that for a lot of people, and it's mostly about pain and suffering than ending life, and or they feel bad about leaving people, and so. With all of that, it's like, okay, so how do you guess when the next 6 months are going to be? And so some disease process allows you to be more realistic and on time than others. But if you, again, the normal bell curve, maybe you don't remember this, Julie, because I didn't have that class with you.
Right.
But there's a 2% on each end of that. The 6 month falls in the middle. And so there's going to be 2% that might die sooner, and there are going to be 2% that die later. And we've had people on for almost 3 years.
Oh, wow.
We've had people on for 3 hours.
Right.
So it just varies. And so it's an educated guess by the physician and as to where they think they're at with that. And the answer is, or the question would be, would it surprise you if so-and-so would die by Christmas? Right. And if it wouldn't be a surprise, they're ready for hospice. And how then do you bring that up? Because when you say the word hospice, they're going to freak on you and think you know something that they don't know and that they're dying. And then it could cause them to get depressed or to, all sorts of things can happen depending on somebody's entire history. So everybody is unique in how they do that. But 1 in 5 people graduate off of hospice. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge number.
Yeah.
And so you could be one of those people that actually do better. And that's what I love about hospice. And I wish Medicare could expand the coverage, because if you get hospice, you get these people coming to your home. And, some people don't like that. But most of us it's like you don't have to get in a car. And when you're really sick, getting in a car is painful. Driving on a bumpy road is horrible. You're in pain, you're shaking, you're pooping, you're peeing, you're vomiting. I mean, all of that stuff. And now you're in a car, and a lot of us live out of bounds. Right. And so it's like a 15, 20-minute drive, and stops and turns are horrible and all of that. And so it's cool because with hospice, we come to you. And it's a Medicare benefit, so there it's free for you. But so here we come, and you have a nurse, you have a doctor that oversees it, that works with your primary care doctor. You have an aide, you have a social worker, a spiritual care provider. You might have music therapy. You might have a volunteer. There's just all sorts of options to look at and say what can help meet your needs in the end of your life. And it's a beautiful program because it all comes to you. Now, I don't know about you, but when I go to the doctor, I'm at my best. I clean up, I'm showered, I look really good, I have clean underwear on, all the things that you do when you go to a doctor's office. And so it's real easy for your doctor to not really know what's wrong with you. Right. And you forget. I don't know about you. You go in front of your doctor, all of a sudden you forget what your problems are. And it just is amazing.
I'm not really sure why I'm here.
And so I encourage people to take notes and to ask questions, and none of us do. So the cool thing about, again, hospice is the nurse shows up, and you could be having your worst moment. And so they see with their own eyes what's really happening. And it's what happens with that is it allows for better symptom management. When you have better symptom management, your body is doing better and is healing, and you could live longer. It's not everybody, but it's some people. Right. And so you start having these people nurture you, and a lot of us are not good at letting people nurture us.
Right.
And so you let people come in and nurture you and take care of you, and then you might feel well enough to where maybe you feel well enough to go give chemo another shot. So you can actually, if you start feeling better and things are going well, you can cancel hospice and go have treatment again. So it's it's a beautiful program because of that. If you want to continue treatment and have symptom management, that's palliative care. And so palliative care doesn't go to your home and provide that same in-home wraparound service, but they have great physicians and nurse practitioners, and now they even have a nurse here in Kalispell. Every community is different in how they design their palliative care. With hospice, everybody's the same because it's Medicare driven.
Right.
But with palliative care, it's very unique to each office. Our office in Kalispell, we have some incredible physicians and providers, and they just don't have a team that can go bouncing into your home to address all the issues, because the payment structure by Medicare is different. But if you want to continue treatment, you want to continue getting some sort of, whether it's like resort to cancer, just because that's my history. And
Right.
so I know cancer gets a lot of attention. So I don't mean to leave out anything else, Alzheimer's, COPD, all that stuff. But any disease that you have, if you want to continue treatment, you can still get your treatment and get symptom management with palliative care. Both good programs.
Yes, very much so.
So what I like to do is just tell people, you just need to call these professionals so they can explain to you, because they're worried about the money. Yeah. And they're worried about that word hospice.
It's a horrible word.
And I just encourage them, and I just tell them, I love this program so much. And I just don't feel that a very large portion of our population never really takes advantage of it.
Yeah, it's
because they're
underutilized.
scared of it.
Yeah. And the cool, another thing is that it's 100% covered by Medicare, and not just all of the things we talked about, the doctor, the nurse, the aide, the social worker. And by the way, you're in charge. You can say no, you don't want a social worker or a spiritual care provider. But all of these people, but it also covers all of your medications with your disease, all of your equipment, and your medical supplies. And it's all delivered to your home. And so it's just this, it's all inclusive to try and give you the most quality life possible. And it's what happened is they discovered that most people really don't want to go to the hospital,
Right.
especially when they have end of life stuff.
Right.
We just don't want to go there.
Oh, no.
It's a horrible place to be. I mean,
Right.
it's great when you're sick and you're getting some treatment and then you can go home. But when you're end of life, you want to be around your stuff and your loved ones, and you want to be in your home. And when you get to the ER, there are going to be bright lights. There's going to be 50 million people poking, prodding you, and they're going to be giving you all these tests to find out what's going on. And it's what they found is most people don't want to know anymore. They're done with this. They just want to be comfortable. Yeah. And so it's like being put on a railroad track and now having to lift that train up and put them on another track, whether it's palliative care, whether it's hospice. It's a whole different way of thinking, and it's about symptom management, keeping people at home, honoring their wishes, understanding that human being enough to know what they would and wouldn't want. And if it's the end of my life, I really don't want to go to the ICU.
Oh. Yeah.
It's one thing if something happens and I'm going to get over the hump and I'm going to be able to go home, but when you just know that that's not going to happen. And so it's like, I want people to come to me, and I want to be able to eat chocolate chip cookies.
Yes.
It's like, even though, I might be on a heart diet, it's like all the rules.
Quality.
I just look at what's important to me, and it's the people, and it's my home, and it's my own environment, and that's what other people have wanted. So that's where hospice got started, was to try and keep people at home, and they just defined it with that 6 months. Mm-hmm. And then since then, palliative care, it was actually originally a part of hospice. It was palliative care and hospice, but then there's all sorts of Medicare rules that kicked in, but they're separate now.
Oh, good.
So,
Good.
yeah.
So that's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, good. So is there anything that when you're talking to people in our shoes, is there something that we can be telling people to encourage them to call sooner, or,
I wish.
we get stuck a lot
Yeah.
in a bad situation because people haven't been given good information about it. And so I've come to the point that I just say, why don't you get more education, just so you can make a good decision?
I wish I knew the magic answer that not only you are looking for, but all of us, because it's there's a lot of misunderstanding about what hospice is. And again, most people think it's that right when you're on your deathbed, we'll call them in because it's giving up.
Yeah.
Right.
And hospice is not about giving up. And so to have conversations, encourage them to call. It's truly about living that life of hope and fear. And there's a fine dotted line between the two. And one of the beautiful things, if you can convince somebody, hey, you're eligible for hospice. Yay. This is a great program. This is why I want to write my book on love and forgiveness, is because a lot of people, when they get to the end of their life, they either feel like they need to be forgiven or they need to forgive others. All of us have lived our lives and have made some mistakes, all of us. And so some pretty big mistakes, if you want to call them that, or lessons, or however you want to word it. But we've all done stuff that as we lay on our deathbed and we're doing that film of our life, we look back at like, oh. And, my mom passed away 4 years ago. And she was from Coeur d'Alene, and she had horrible disease. And then having had horrible disease, she got worse disease. She had pulmonary fibrosis, which means hardening of the lung. So she was eventually, and she was an old nurse. She was like Nurse Ratched. She knew that she was going to suffocate, basically. And I think of, the COPD and that group of people knowing, stuff about their life ending is scary. So hospice can help with that and help with the breathing and relieving that. And so the anxiety isn't there. So she was on hospice. And so great. She got on hospice. She died a week later of a heart attack. Oh. But I was glad she was on hospice, and I was getting ready to spend time with her and going and helping take care of her, because I had things in my life that I was now looking back at all the way from when I was 6 years old, and stupid things I said or something like that. And I wanted to know that she forgave me for being a stupid 6-year-old. Oh. And she died.
Oh, Jennifer.
And, I think of that, and it's like, okay, so I talked to my dad about it. I processed it. I went through therapy, just all the stuff we do. But those are the kind of things that when somebody's on their deathbed, they're going through a list. You're going through a list. It's a normal process to start thinking of your lives together in that interaction. And, I can't tell you how many times in working with people, an affair has happened. Not with me. But somebody in that marriage has had an affair, and they need to know they were forgiven. That happens more than we would realize, or just something like that. And it's big and it's guilty, and maybe the person dying doesn't need it.
Yeah.
But the people that are going to have to live the rest of their life do. Yeah. And so that's another advantage of when you start working with hospice, is we have people, social work and spiritual care providers, that can help bring up difficult conversations that make it the best ending possible. Maybe there's one kid in the family that was the wayward youth, and we need to call them back. Maybe there just needs to be some resolution. And so the opportunity to actually have the best ending possible in all sorts of levels is there. Spiritual, physical, and emotional. It's the opportunity to heal at all levels provides itself. And so, we know all of these things, and you can't just sit down and somehow plug in a thumb drive to some human being so they can get it. And so how do you share all of that? We've also met cool people. Oh my gosh. We've met some of the coolest people. And guess what? We can do life review videos with them.
Oh.
And so they can talk about World War II and the things they did, or going to the Sun Road, or living through the Great Depression, and fishing in streams where you can just grab fish out of the water. Some of these stories are absolutely incredible. And so they get to talk about that and how they were raised and where they were raised. And we're losing that through living all over, and we just don't have a lot of that anymore. And so that's something also offered by hospice. And so you can have all sorts of opportunities to create your story and tell your story if you want to. You're in charge. But like you said, here's all these great advantages, and you and I know it, and we just can't get the word out there. I hope people listen to this podcast. Oh, Inga, get your mom on it.
I know. She's on it, man.
She is on it for sure. My mom and her mom. Yeah. No, that's why we wanted you here, is because truly we know and appreciate what you guys, your team does. And we just want to share that with people, because so many people, when we're dealing with an end-of-life situation, so much of the time, it's not necessarily for the person that's actually passing. It's for the family, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so for them to have all these different tools that they can choose and pick what's best for their people. And then afterwards, don't you guys also have like grief?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. Actually, you know, we're available per our brochure, we're available 13 months after somebody dies.
Oh, wow.
But it can be longer.
Sure.
Yeah.
And most people, somebody dies and we all just go through normal grief. There's a percentage where it's a little bit more complicated. Yeah. So we have bereavement support, and we can follow up with people and help them get through that and reestablish their life. And so that's absolutely a benefit of it. And interesting, 10%, there's been studies, 10% of the people living in nursing homes across the nation meet criteria for hospice. Oh. And I don't know about you, but I don't know that we've ever had 10% of any nursing home on hospice.
Right.
And so the thing about hospice is we provide our services in your home, whatever your home is. It can be a nursing home, assisted living, your house, your kid's house. It could be under the bridge. It can be a tent. We've helped homeless people. Wow. And so, again, some of it is working on bridging that relationship with lost ones during your life, and some of it is just meeting you right where you're at and helping you find your way.
Oh, I'll tell you. And you don't realize until you've been through a family member leaving that how you're going to be, right? And so I can now much more appreciate somebody on the other side that's dealing with all of these emotions. And like when we were going through our stuff with Dad, it was very interesting. 4 kids, 4 total different ways of dealing with it. Yeah. And so that's really, really interesting and there's no right way and there's no wrong way. Oh. We each have our things, all of our memories, all of our guilty things, our whatever. And, whatever those little weird things are that we put up into our heads and fester on, and usually those are some of the things that come out during this process.
Yeah, you're right. There's no wrong way, and everybody does it different. And it made me laugh because I was remembering when my mom was dying. Oh my God, funny stories. My mother, she was such a nurse. And by the way, she didn't like social workers.
So you promptly became one.
Yes. And so she had died before. Like 18 years prior, she had a heart attack and she died. And they called the paramedics. They came and they did everything. They brought her back and she had to be shocked 11 times.
Oh my goodness.
So she's being shocked. She's in the ER now, and the paddles, you see that where the bodies go ka-ching, and they fly in the air, and everybody stand back, and like they're shocking you with like major electricity. So here she is. Well, she came to during that, and she's, I invoke my rights. So she's trying to tell the doctor that she has an advance directive and she wants to die and to leave her alone.
Oh, no.
And he said, "This is recoverable." Ka-ching! Boom. But so she's telling me later on that she actually died. She knew she was dead. She left her body and was in the light.
Oh.
So me being such a social worker, I'm like, oh, and I'm thinking she's in this beautiful light and everything's warm. And she's like, "No, you dumb shit. The light. I was in the fluorescent tube watching." Like, so that's my mom. So I'm like all into this, spiritual meaning of it. And she's so physical. She's always physical. And she's like, "No, I was watching him do it. And he shocked me again."
Oh my gosh.
So, but is what she described was how peaceful she felt.
Oh.
And so when she really went to die, years later, she was okay with it.
I have heard that many times, like drowning victims that come back, just the level of peace that they have. Yeah, that's got to be super comforting. I know that some of the patients that we have worked with, or clients that we've worked with who are on hospice, if there are unresolved issues, it can be torture for them. They have a very, very hard time letting go in, what we've seen. But the people that are able to work through that, and oftentimes with the help of hospice teams, it just makes it such a better passing for them.
Yeah, and that's why I really plug hospice for a sooner referral rather than later. But oftentimes 6 months isn't enough. And so you have a lifetime of a lot of stuff, and you might not be able to have any resolution, but is there enough? Is there enough to where your scar has a little bit of healing on it? And that's our hope for some people. You can't change everybody. And it's up to them. And so you can just provide them with an opportunity and to try and help them. But one time I was working with a woman, and none of her kids got along, and they were all very wildly different. And her last wish was she just wanted her family to get along. And so everybody was able to pull it together and fake it while she died so that she could have a peaceful ending.
Right.
And so, God bless them. They, it's like they were able to do that. And then their family fell apart afterwards because you can only hold on to that for so long without having a lot of extra work and support for each member. Right. They didn't want to go there. But it was so sweet to watch them come together so that their mom, could at least have her last wish come true. It's so sweet. And so everybody, how they choose to honor that and what they want to do is different. And again, there's no wrong answer. It's just so incredibly beautiful to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys offer education in the community, right? Tell us a little bit about some of those things that you will do.
Oh, we have all sorts of different programs that we can come to. Any group that wants education. We've talked, I'm doing another one tomorrow on advance directives. That seems to be a real popular one, explaining what it's about and what the different forms are and what it all means. And then, of course, with 28 years of working in healthcare, I have all sorts of stories. And so it actually makes it real so people can really think and have good conversations. We talk about Hospice 101, just kind of explaining what hospice is. Oftentimes that's done in assisted living or in nursing homes because it's the staff, especially the aides, that see people again and again, and they're starting to see them like just decline. And so there are things you can look at in older people and saying, okay, they're sleeping more, they're not interacting as much, they're not eating as much. Those are signs that their body is starting to give in. Wow. And so just educating people and stuff about hospice. Then we can also do it on pain, on symptom management, on, we have a whole list of it. I don't recall off my head, but...
Yeah. Well, no, you've got a pretty good list going already.
Yeah. We just try to help people understand bad disease and options.
Yeah. So many times when we will talk to people about hospice, the response is, well, we're not ready yet. We're not ready yet. Right. So that the more we can learn about it, the more we can educate our staff and be able to talk to people about, you know, there's never going to, it's like you're going to save your money and you're going to, you know, have the first house before you have the baby and all of these things, right? Just don't wait because these benefits are there and they're so helpful. And like you've mentioned, I mean, there's a large percentage of people that actually graduate off of hospice. So why not take advantage of what's available to you for that comfort and quality of life?
I agree. I think, again, a lot of people think that when they're on hospice, it's like it.
Yeah.
And they can't graduate off or they won't get better. And so in our minds, we're saying, wow, mom's going to die. Right. And a lot of us just can't go there.
There's a lot of denial for sure. And, you know, we work with people who truly believe that their loved one will get better or will recover. And that's heartbreaking too.
And our hope is they will.
Yeah. Yep.
And so if 1 in 5 actually do get better, we can be a part of that and we can help them with symptom management so that they don't suffer while that's happening. And then boom, they can graduate off. And so it's, again, there's, Dr. Carlberg, one of the palliative care docs, she's the one that talked to me a lot about the fine line between hope and fear. Mm-hmm. Oh. And so a lot of us have that fear that this is the end. And we think that if we give up hope, that we're giving up. Mm-hmm. And we can be hopeful and still be afraid and still move forward. And so how do you, let's provide some help for this person so that they don't suffer while we're scared with them. One of the things that happens, and I see it all the time, is when we're suffering, especially with end-of-life stuff, it's a horrible place to be. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're the one that actually has bad disease and that you know that you're on the trajectory and that you're going to die sooner rather than later. And so you're scared, you're doing a life review, you're looking at things, you're like, wow, do I quit my job? Do I go play? All the things that go on in your mind, and you're alone. And so now you have your family and your friends and they're thinking, oh, mom's dying. But I don't want her to think that I'm thinking that. So I'm going to pretend and I'm going to be hopeful and I'm going to encourage her. So what happens now is we're all suffering on parallel roads. Mm-hmm. And so we're in the same boat, but we're totally on a different road driving right next to each other. Mm-hmm. One of the things we try to do in both palliative care and in hospice is merge those roads, so that there can be some communication and a little bit of suffering together and hope together, because they can live together. But how do we get everybody on the same page? Because, oh my gosh, when you walk into somebody's home and they each are suffering in their own room, it's palpable. And how do we get everybody on the same page so that we can cry together, so that we can be together? So my mom, I always use my examples. There I am. So I kind of know what's going on. She's not on hospice yet. I call up hospice in Coeur d'Alene and say, hey, somebody has pulmonary fibrosis. What are the symptoms, or what do they need? Where do they need to be at to be on your service? And they said, oh, oxygen is the huge thing. Their O2 sats have to be under 75. I don't remember what it was. So I'm like, okay. So, when I talk to my mom on the phone, she's faking it because all moms don't want their kids to know how much they're suffering. So she's faking it. She's telling me how great she's doing. So I drive to Coeur d'Alene, get my eyes on her. Like, she doesn't look as good as she says. Yeah. And so brothers are there and we're having a barbecue. I think it was her birthday even. And so we're having a little barbecue. My dad and my older brother are out back barbecuing. And I'm like, so Mom, what's your O2 sat? 99.
And then like, her pants caught fire.
Well, and so I told her to take the O2 off her nose and then tell me what it is. 62.
Oh my gosh.
I started crying. Just like no thought to it, like instant, like, so I'm crying. My brother, and so like my mom hates to see people cry. She's that kind of nurse. So
no crying aloud.
I'm crying. So, I went running to my room. And so my brother comes in from barbecuing. What's going on? Oh, for Christ's sakes, your sister thinks I'm dying. So I'm in the back room. My brother comes to my room, and I'm like, Mom's dying. Well, that's what she said, you said. And so I told her what happened. Now he's crying, and I'm like, oh, geez. And so it's what that moment did, though, is it got us all on the same page.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
It was inadvertent. It just happened. But here we all kind of knew it. And none of us were talking about it. And so now here we are. And yes, Mom is dying. And that was end of April, and she died the end of July.
Wow.
And so, it's like, how do you get people on that same page and start talking about it? And again, I can talk till I'm blue in the face about all these great advantages to hospice and getting people together. And you guys have both said it. It's hard to get people to say, yeah, I want hospice.
Right. Yeah, I love how you say that hospice is not about dying. Hospice is about living.
Yeah.
I mean, that completely shifts the perspective.
Oh my goodness.
And
really
that changes everything when you look at it from that,
Yeah.
from the proper angle.
Yep.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Yep. I will certainly be using that from now on. I love that so much.
Yeah, I wonder what phrase you will read from the Bible now.
So tell me this really quickly. So basically, I'm sure everybody's situation is different, right? So symptom management, like pain management, do the nurses go in daily, a couple times a week, every day, every once, you know what I'm...
Good question.
Yeah.
Good. There are some places throughout the U.S. that actually have hospice houses. And, I wish we had one here. They are hard. They're usually... they don't pay for themselves. So usually have some big contributor that has said, I'm going to give you $1 million and I'm going to pay for all your expenses, because it takes 24-hour nursing.
Right.
And you just don't get the reimbursement. Right. And so it's a hard thing to offer. It's a beautiful thing. So in Kalispell, we don't really have that. In Kalispell, we have your traditional hospice plan where a nurse comes into your home. They do the admission, which usually is a 1 hour, 2 hour interview with you, fill out some paperwork with the durable power of attorney, and then the next day come in and do a follow-up. And most of the time, the nurses come in once a week.
Right.
They can come in more than that, depending on what's going on with your symptoms, because their job is to get your symptoms under control and to try and do that in your own home, because you want to avoid a hospital.
Right.
And so they're coming into your home with the doctor who's working with them, trying to figure out what to do. They're usually pretty good. Symptom management for most people is about pain and bowels. Those are our two big ones. And so they're really good at doing that, different medications and adjusting them. Sometimes people are working with a naturopath or herbs or different things. And so we work with all of that. It's whatever you need. Mm-hmm. And so trying to figure that out. Chaplain can come in. They usually come in every other week, sometimes once a month. But again, if you need it once a week, that's what you get to ask for. Mm-hmm. And same with social work. A lot of people, social work, you're not taking my kids. That old history of social workers being the CPS workers, and that's totally not what we do. And so they can come in, and not only can they help with resources, like we help plug people in with IPAGA and caregivers and whatever's needed in the home to keep people in the home, or if they're just too much work and they need a placement, we work with assisted livings, and we're trying to find nursing homes, which right now with all three of those is challenging, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But we work with all of that. But you get to decide. On average, a nurse comes in once a week. An aide comes in 1 to 3 times a week, depending on who you are and what you need. Social worker and chaplain each come in maybe once a month. We have a music therapist that can come in. Not that often, because we only have her one, and she has to cover everyone. And love watching her interact, especially with people with memory issues.
Music is just incredible.
Yeah. And then we have volunteers that can come in and just sit with people for a couple hours, maybe while a loved one needs a break and goes to the grocery store. So it really varies, but honestly, for the most part, it's once a week nursing, once a month social work, once a month chaplain, and then aides 1 to 3 times a week. And you think, wow, that's all we get? 24-hour nursing availability. So we give out these packets. They're called comfort packs that you usually put on top of your fridge, and it has a whole bunch of different medications in it. And when something happens in the middle of the night, which it always does, and you call up our nurse who's available 24/7, then the nurse can walk you through, based on symptoms, what to go get out of that pack and give to your loved one so that their suffering is relieved. And if it's not relieved, which 99% of the time it is, they'll either say you either need to go to the hospital or the nurse will come to your home. Right. And so it's that availability. And then we have doctors and nurse practitioners that back us that we can always call, and pharmacists. So we have a lot of tools to keep you home and comfortable.
I'll tell you, we love working with hospice because in our situation, when somebody's on hospice, we don't call 911. At any point anymore. We call you guys, and basically the way I explain that is you become our medical direction. And so whenever there's maybe some shortness of breath or some anxiety or pain, we call you guys and you walk us through, and it's a wonderful thing. And you guys are incredibly responsive to us.
We've even actually had hospice nurses almost do bodyguarding. We've had situations where families, things get tense and can escalate in troubled times. And so I vividly remember one of your nurses meeting with one of our caregivers. The caregiver had taken one of the clients, and basically it wasn't the client that we were serving that was on hospice. It was a husband. So our caregiver had the wife, and they were out in town driving around because there was a blow up with the kids, and then one of your hospice nurses met back at the family home to go in and have the difficult discussions and, kind of set the expectations and the boundaries for the family. And we absolutely love anytime we hear that hospice is involved in a situation. It makes us happy because we know how much you guys bring to the table.
Yeah, it becomes a pretty solid team for that family. Yeah, it's a blessing for sure.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah. Well, that's been pretty in depth. I think. Is there anything that we didn't ask you about or touch base on? I mean, I know we could talk for days, but we better not.
We better not. People have to go out and live their dash now.
Yeah, get into your dash.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I love sharing information about hospice. I think it's a gift. I think it's a beautiful program. And again, Encompass Hospice is the company I work with right now. And they used to be called Frontier. And man, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just start asking questions.
Yep.
Yeah, we could answer them. You're not committed to anything. We can have family meetings. We can talk to you about it. And then we can give you information. So when you're ready for it, you'll have the information. Yep. So really, we're open to whatever we can do to give you all the information you need.
Right. I know that I have in the past had friends who live here in this community with family members that actually don't live in this community, and they'll ask questions. And I've actually said, call Frontier. And they'll explain hospice to you. And, I can say what I can say about it, but you guys have just been so accessible always, and very willing to help and educate. So we appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, thanks.
For sure.
That's wonderful.
So I'm not sure that we are prepared for the grandma sayings, and we probably sprung this one on you. You've told us some stories about your mom, but at the end of our show, we always like to do what's called the grandma sayings or grandpa sayings. And it's things that people in that older generation, maybe, is there anything that your family said to you as you were growing up that's kind of I don't want to say an old person saying, because that would be like a Julie saying, but
so old.
Wow, that's a good
I stumped
one.
you.
You did. Yeah. Well, I was in the military, so I wasn't around my grandparents a lot.
Yep.
And so there wasn't, you think about things you miss out on.
Yeah.
A lot of people say military brat, but it's like I missed out on being around my relatives.
Right.
Well, here's one for you. And it says, grandmas never run out of hugs or cookies.
This is so true. or Cheetos and 7-Up if it's my grandma.
My grandma always had lemon drops on top of the TV.
There you go.
That's good. That's awesome.
That's great. Good.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you again, Jennifer, for being here. We appreciate it. What a tremendous amount of knowledge you've been able to share with us. And what's cool about it is that while we are here in the Flathead Valley, this hospice information, it is applicable everywhere. So people that are listening, not necessarily in Kalispell, call your hospice agency if you have questions. Yep. Really encourage you to do that. Please think about subscribing to this podcast. You can do that on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and you can watch the video on YouTube. You can also leave us a review. Please share this with your friends. Ask them to join our Apaga Care and Share Facebook group. If you want to see kind of the lighter side, you can go onto TikTok and see some of our videos. Julie and I are not good dancers. We're out of rhythm and we're out of sync, but we sure have fun making those videos. Check us out on Instagram. And again, I say this every time. We are accepting reviews, but only positive reviews. So feel free to give us 5 stars.
It's a good thing that Inga wasn't in that class with us.
Right.
Oh, I would have never met you guys because I would have been sitting at the front of the class. I would have been rolling my eyes at the clowns in the back.
At the loud buggers back in the back. Yep.
Yeah. But now I've been, partners with Julie here for 14 years. So I've changed significantly. I've lightened up a lot. It's true. Any last parting words?
I think we're good.
Right,
It's been a great day. Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Yeah.
Peace out, Girl Scouts.
Have a good day. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.